What's up? Welcome into Foxboro Rush. I'm George Balekji. He is Sean McGuire. Sean, we got a packed one today. What a time. NFL trade deadline. Buzzing. I'm happy to have you back on Rush. Been a minute. How we doing, my man?
It's good. It's good to be back in studio with you, George.
Right? Like the virtual world, it's not enough. I need you back in studio with me, although we are confined by these boxes. But nonetheless, good to have you with me. We got a packed show for you guys. I mean, we're going to take some news around the NFL, like Anthony Richardson being benched, Stephon Diggs done for the year, and the ramifications it can have across the league. We give you our reaction to the Joshua Uche trade of Elliott Wolf sending him to the Chiefs for basically a new straw hat that he's going to wear on the beach next summer, and how the Patriots should approach the trade deadline as well, what we want to see for them, and what other teams out there could it make sense while the Patriots are selling. Do they buy on some other teams that are going to miss the playoffs and want to offload on some future stars? But let's start with the big news in the NFL. First things first, we'll go to Indy. Anthony Richardson benched by the Indianapolis Colts. He had a 44.4% completion percentage, second worst since 2000 when the Bengals had Achilles Smith, who had a worse completion percentage. Against the Texans, 31%. Second lowest by a quarterback with 30 or more attempts in the last 10 seasons. Look, man, he followed up a 10 for 24 performance, going 10 for 32. The Colts have not been finding wins. They just need to find some semblance of a good offense. Joe Flacco effect, you have him on the bench. He gives your team a better shot at winning on Sundays than what Anthony Richardson has put out through 10 career games in the NFL, which could shock people for them to pull the plug this quick, Sean.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, I agree. I think Joe Flacco probably does give you a better chance to win at this point. But, I mean, what are the Colts really going to do at this point? You know, they're fighting for a playoff berth, but if they get there, they're probably going one and done. I mean, they're not winning the South over Houston. And I just think, like, it was well known that when Anthony Richardson was entering the league that he needed time, that, you know, he was very raw. He had a lot of potential, which he still does, but he was very raw. He kind of needed to, you know, play and learn as he went. And I think to pull the plug at this point, you know, 10 game, like you said, 10 starts into his career, you know, last year obviously hindered by injury, but to give him 10 starts and then pull the plug for Joe Flacco, like, I think it might give you a better chance in 2024, but does that kind of, prolong or hinder, you know, his development going forward? And we've seen these sort of, you know, circumstances around the league. We saw it with Bryce Young earlier in the season too. And I just think that, you know, some teams, like, you don't think as big picture maybe as you should. So I guess I can't help but think, like, you know, they are pulling the plug too early at this point. And there's a report out of Indy. It was ESPN's Stephen Holder that said that, you know, unsurprisingly, Anthony Richardson was pretty devastated by the news. So I can't help but think, like, you know, at this point, give him some more time, give him another start or two, or give him the rest of the season, really. So to me, it just feels a little quick to pull the plug.
Man, he was 13 starts at Florida, came into the league under 21 years old, is 22 starting this season, only played 10 career games, but against non-pressure, he was completing 48.1% of his passes. Oof. Non-pressure, a clean pocket. Second worst in the NFL is Aaron Rodgers at 65%. You're almost 20% worse than the second worst in the NFL when you have a clean pocket. And when I go 10 for 24 to 10 for 32, back-to-back games, he was hovering like 2 for 9 to start, 2 for 12. It's just scary hours, and this is also on the heels of him going, I'm taking myself out of a play out of the game right now because I'm gassed, which I get. It was with his athleticism, he's asking to do so much. You're the franchise quarterback. You're the leader. You're the face of this entire team. You cannot do that, and that's what makes it really tough for me. So he's benched. It makes him better now. I would have kept playing him. But as they've said in Indy, you know, that gives him, you know, catch your breath, hit a restart. We saw Bryce Young. He was benched, had to come in for Andy Dalton. Didn't look too bad. Let him take a step back. Let him learn the game. I think he should have been redshirted no matter what. Yeah. I don't think playing him right away was the right one. So maybe Shane Steichen is correcting that mistake now. If you sit him, let him develop. And you know what? They should have let him sit because in year 3, he would have been more ready. But if he is, and it's still 2-3 seasons remaining of a cost control contract, it could pay dividends for them. But I'm still very skeptic of Anthony Richardson. All right, Stephon Diggs. This is tough news to hear. Done for the season, non-contact ACL tear. Texans are playing the Jets, short week, Thursday Night Football. Nico Collins is not expected off the injured reserve with a hamstring until week 10. But this is a huge shot because we were all praising Nick Caserio in that Texans front office. They went out, extended Nico Collins, drafted Tank Dell, got Dalton Schultz, got Joe Mixon, traded for Stephon Diggs on a prove-it deal, putting everything into C.J. Stroud right now, who checks every box, ramping up the defense as well. This is a huge shot, man. This is massive. He was fantastic for the Texans. He was locked in. He was professional. He was playing winning football. He was being competitive. He was being a vet. This sucks to hear. This changes a lot about the Texans, and maybe they go out and add another receiver to respond to this, but a huge shot for their offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And now, I mean, fortunately for them, it sounds like Nico Collins is returning soon. You know, it sounds like he's kind of projected to return week 10, so after this week, which, I mean, that's at least a silver lining, right? And you still have Tank Dell. So I guess if there was like one receiver room in the league really that could handle this, it probably would be Houston, you know, if you were thinking about it at the beginning of the season. So I guess that's a silver lining. The absolute worst part of this is that Houston, I mean, second in the conference behind only Kansas City, first in the division, looks like it's, will run away with that division, even without Stephon Diggs. So, but it wasn't just that. I mean, they were like a legitimate Super Bowl contender, a legitimate AFC title contender.
Oh, yeah.
And, that injury definitely changes some things.
He was still explosive, still one of the best route runners in the league. And, I mean, that 47 catches in 8 games, almost 500 receiving yards, on top of the 3 touchdowns already. The chemistry was there. We've seen it right away. We saw it up close and how he was dicing up Christian Gonzalez in the matchup between the Texans and Patriots. This is a huge shot for them. Now with teams looking around to add to the trade deadline, and we'll get to the Ravens in a second, maybe the Texans dip back into the well, pick up the phone call, find out what receivers need to be moved. Because when they made the Stephon Diggs move, they're going all in. If they can go out and have the cap space to make it work for another, Nico Collins and C.J. Stroud looked like the best quarterback wide receiver combo before Collins went down with the hamstring. Or maybe this is looking at Bobby Slowick and going, look, man, you're one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. John Mechie, still a high-profile draft pick. When they got him out of Alabama, not the same receiver, more explosive, more downfield than Stephon Diggs, who is one of the best route runners in the NFL. But can you have guys step up? Maybe Tank Dell steps into a Stephon Diggs role. John Mechie takes over a more explosive role, and everything comes together when Nico Collins get back. This stinks because Stephon Diggs, I mean, very polarizing, very much a diva, very much makes it about himself. But I want to see what this Texans offense can do. I want to see what C.J. Stroud can do. I want to see what they can do in the playoffs. This is another test for D'Amico Ryans, for Bobby Slowick, for Nick Caserio, for C.J. Stroud, just how great they are. Can they push the buttons? Because we saw DeAndre Hopkins get moved, and we saw Deontay Johnson get to the Ravens, which went down on the same day the Stephon Diggs news broke. So Deontay Johnson and his 6th-round pick traded to the Ravens. The Panthers in return get a 5th in this current draft. I was surprised just a 5th, but a great addition for Baltimore, Sean. Like, Zay Flowers has been good. Andrews doesn't look right after last season's ankle injury. Isaiah Likely is okay. But Deontay Johnson, explosive receiver, great at attacking downfield. He's a chain mover, and he's just an all-around great receiver. You get him in a Todd Monken offense. I love this move by Baltimore where we have Derrick Henry, we have Lamar Jackson looking like an MVP. Let's not leave anything to chance. I don't want it to be pass catchers coming up short again, especially after Rashad Bateman's showing. Add Deontay Johnson just to give up a 5th-round pick, I think is brilliant. Yeah, I mean, what a cheap price. And it is. It's this kind of the case of the rich get richer. And let me just go into, this was a tweet from Albert Breer. So the Panthers sent Deontay Johnson last year to... the Steelers sent Deontay Johnson to Carolina. Yes, correct. And so the Panthers traded cornerback Dante Johnson. That's, close names. Dante Johnson and a 6th-rounder to the Steelers for Deontay Johnson in March. Since then, Jackson, the quarterback, has started every game for the Steelers and has 3 picks. Johnson has 30 catches, 357 yards, and now has been dealt to Baltimore after 8 weeks of the season. So to me, it's just like, wow, Carolina is just another example of just what a terrible franchise that is. But yeah, I mean, back to Baltimore. I mean, it is just,
final year of his deal, but you give up nothing. So, and you can't help but think, his ability outside is just going to open things up for Zay Flowers and for the tight ends that you just mentioned. So just adds another element to the offense, maybe a run first, run heavy offense, but adds a great, skill set to that offense for sure.
I'm excited to see him in a Todd Monken offense. You go from Dave Canales to Todd Monken. I mean, you're landing with good offensive coordinators, and you upgrade. You go from whatever the Steelers had last year to Bryce Young and Andy Dalton to now Lamar Jackson. Like, what a great move by the Ravens, and what continues to be one of the most stellar franchises in the NFL, one of the most fascinating front offices and brilliant front offices to add like this. Same thing. There's a lot of windows open in the NFL right now. How open they are varies from team to team. With Derrick Henry at this rate that he's playing, with Lamar Jackson under this contract now, you don't have to play Zay Flowers yet. This defense is just good enough. You still have Kyle Van Noy playing at a high level. And I'm using KVN as an example of like these vets that they signed and are still having great years. Well, I'm surprised he's still in the NFL, but he's playing fantastic. Go out and get a Deontay Johnson when the Chiefs still haven't figured out their offense. And I think that's what's essential. Score and keep up, run the ball and kick their ass. And you added Deontay Johnson on the outside for Lamar Jackson to work with for just a 5th round pick is insane to think about. So just the Ravens being the Ravens, and in the way the Panthers being the Panthers, Deontay Johnson was on a rental. You get something in return. It's a late round pick. It's nothing stellar, but they need to rebuild in a lot of spots. So I like that trade by the Ravens, and we'll see what else happens across the league because plenty of guys on the block. Let's talk about the Patriots trade that started the trade deadline for them. So Joshua Uche goes from an offseason where he said he could have got paid more elsewhere to signing a proven deal with the Patriots to having a good start to the season, then falling off. Being a healthy scratch on Sunday against the Jets, which Gerard Mayo said was, well, it's just about putting the 5 best guys out there, so he was a healthy scratch. To mere hours after he said that, claimed that. Traded to the Chiefs for a 2026 6th round pick. What did you make of this move by the Patriots, which we all knew they should be being sellers at the deadline?
Yeah, like you just said, you saw it coming. He saw less snaps. He was inactive, like you said, in week 8. And it's just he's a pass rusher, right? And the Patriots are not a team that had a ton of opportunities to rush the passer because they were getting gashed on the ground. And then they would get in games and they'd be down 2-3 scores or something like that. And opponents would just say, okay, we're just going to keep running the ball right at you. And a lot of times Josh Uche was targeted, on the ground when it came to the run game. So he didn't really fit this Patriots team, I guess, is kind of the best way, in the current moment. And it's kind of too bad because Uche during the offseason, talked about how he felt like he was, destined, I think was the word. He was destined to be a Patriot. And he was like so excited essentially for the new Gerard Mayo era and everything like that. And that's why he, passed on deals and opted not to take those deals and instead signed a cheap 1-year deal with the Patriots, probably in hopes of that would be coming something long-term down the road. And it just didn't pan out. But I think when you think about it, it makes sense for the Patriots in this moment to get something for him because who knows, the comp pick formula, all that sort of stuff. If the Patriots are going to spend a ton like we expect them to this offseason, maybe they don't get that sort of comp pick back for Josh Uche if Uche leaves in the offseason. So I think it makes sense for them to make the move. Didn't get a ton back, but that's kind of where they're at. Yeah,
he was a good pass rusher, third down specialist. We saw his pass rush snaps fall off the 4 weeks leading up to him becoming a DNP and becoming a healthy and active basically against the Jets.
Yep.
His run defense never got there, and that's what's so important to thrive in New England is to be a run defender. And other guys have been able to be in that role. This was just he's at a position of high need for so many teams. The Chiefs were struggling to get after the quarterback, but they have good players like a Chris Jones and a George Karlaftis and good guys on the back end like a Trent McDuffie. A Leo Chenal as well, linebacker, who's played everywhere for them and been a beast. And working with Steve Spagnuolo. So they can take someone that's unproductive, and we will see that uptick in his game of everyone going, why did the Patriots trade Josh Uche? Yep. Look at how good he's been. There's going to be a big playoff sack, maybe a big Super Bowl sack, and everyone's going to look at Elliott Wolf. My issue with this is just the 2026 6th round pick. So what I compare it to is The Panthers traded Deontay Johnson and a 6th-round pick for a 5th. The Patriots should have done the same. Combine Josh Uche with a 6th-round pick in this draft to move up and get a 5th.
Yep.
Instead of getting a 6th even in this draft, you're getting a 6th in next draft. You always want the draft picks now because, in theory, teams get better as the seasons go on and they pile up and the years go on. So the 6th-round pick in the future will be a worse pick later in the round than it is now. And what gets me is thinking of all the teams that need pass rushers. The Lions,
Detroit.
the Eagles, the Falcons, right? Like, and all teams that will be in the playoffs. There's a lot of suitors. The Chiefs certainly needed one. I wanted to see a better return, and that's what didn't make sense with this. Smart to sell, smart to get something back, because on a rental, he proved to be the same exact player, and he wasn't fitting with the DeMarcus Covington defense. I just wanted to see more from Elliott Wolf, so it's good to sell. I agree with that. On a piece that wasn't working out, I think he had 8 pass rush snaps against the Jaguars, maybe 17, or it was 8 against the Texans, 17 against the Jaguars, 4 pressures, I believe, in his last 5 games. So he was basically a non-factor.
Yeah.
And 0 in his last 2 playing. He wasn't amounting to anything.
Yep.
But still, that's a defensive end. Like, Sean, 5 most important positions in football: quarterback, tackle, wide receiver, corner, pass rusher. So he's one of those 5 most important positions, and you're getting a future 6th on him. That's what leaves me remiss about this on the job they did on working this trade, Sean.
Yeah, it's certainly not much to celebrate. And, Bill Belichick, when he was on McAfee yesterday, said, say it again?
I said, of course.
Yeah,
he commented
to no
about it on
surprise.
McAfee.
But Bill Belichick, when he was on McAfee yesterday, kind of took a little jab at the Patriots. Like, wow, Kansas City gave up nothing. And it does kind of feel like that. But I think it does tell you where they're at because, yeah, we know the teams, and I think Detroit definitely stuck out as one to me that, could add a pass rusher after Aiden Hutchinson went down, everything like that. So they really were like a glaring spot for Uche.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe no one was offering better than a 6. You got a guy. Yeah, he's a former 2nd-round pick, a lot of potential, really explosive when he's doing his job, when he is in pass rushing situations. But he also hasn't done a ton besides that 2022 season, and
exactly.
he had Judon opposite him that year too. So I think it was 11.5 sacks that season. But great year. But really, in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't done a ton in New England. So, I don't know. I mean, what's the highest? What's the most that you would have expected from that?
It's the demand of the position and the leverage of other possible suitors. And that's what I would like to see it from Elliott Wolf, where you get the Chiefs on the phone, who are a Super Bowl contender, and you call the Lions. You guys look great. Just lost Aiden Hutchinson, a team you'll see in the Super Bowl. They want Josh Uche. What do you want to offer for it? And you're being reasonable.
Yeah.
A current 6th. I'm not asking for the world.
Yeah.
But a future pick, hey, we'll send you Uche and a 6th to get your 5th. So you'll get a pass rusher. You'll still have a late round pick. Combine it with your 6, you can move back. But here, call the Eagles. Call the Falcons. Call the Ravens, a competitor in the AFC.
Yeah.
Do that. And that's what
fair.
I wonder. Or if it's just you get this phone, it just doesn't make sense to me. And everything's perfect in my world from where I sit because I'm not in Elliott Wolf's office. But play the leverage. He's a high demand player. He's a good player. And a lot of teams need it. And in the NFL, you can't have enough pass rushers. You can't have enough fresh guys on the edge to get after a quarterback, especially late in games, late in drives, when tackles are tired, when a defense is kicking their butt. So do that, and that's where it leaves me miffed on what did Elliott Wolf do here. And that's what I wonder. So
I think it's a fair point.
Look, I just want more, and I know I'm a harsh critic, and it's never enough for me. I am all-time hater, but that's where it gets me. And you speak about that 2022 season. Yeah, that's when he went on a run over, what was that, an 8-game span. Mm-hmm. And for Uche, yeah, I have it in my notes. 8-game span, 11.5 sacks. Outside of that, that was really it. Go back last season, has just 3 sacks on a down year. Was great in those 8 games. Didn't amount to too much. All right, so we're criticizing Elliott Wolf for the Josh Uche trade. Me more than you, to be fair. But how should the Patriots approach the deadline? Because There was a report by Mike Giardi of Boston Sports Journal tweeting, quote, Patriots have told teams they are open for business. League sources expect them to peel off another vet or two before the November 5th deadline. And he says expectations are that more guys will be moved. So that rings out to me, vets.
Yep.
Like to say that, veterans, not just players, another vet or two. Who do you think are like the top guys in this you would like to see the Patriots move? You think makes sense for the Patriots, could get a good return? Who do you think will be on the move from New England?
Well, I think when you think about the most logical, and I'll approach it from that standpoint, I think if I'm to rank three from number 3 to number 1, I'm going to go number 3 most logical is Kendrick Bourne.
Okay.
And I think we've seen him surface in a number of rumors, really, dating back for seasons at this point. But just recently, just last week, I think it was NFL Media said that, they included him in a deal, or they included him in trade speculation, I guess.
Yeah.
At the time, it was reported that it would take a large deal to acquire Bourne, which, I think that makes sense. And I kind of see both sides of it, because I do think like the Patriots are in a spot right now where their receiver room is a dumpster fire. It's made up of delusional 3rd and 4th receivers who think they're 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
And I think Bourne has been over these last few weeks, like, the veteran, the older guy in the room, the veteran in the room. After Sunday, we talked to him and he took the blame. He shouldered the blame for, his drops and not playing well. And those sorts of things, those sorts of comments haven't surfaced from the Patriots receiver room all that much.
Yeah.
Instead it's guys going to social media to take out their frustrations or
demand trades
or, publicly saying that they're demanding the ball. I mean, publicly throwing shade at the play callers and the coaching staff and saying that they're demanding the ball. And I think because of that, it makes a lot of sense for the Patriots to keep Bourne. But given where they're at, and, so far away from a playoff team and, everything like that, I think if you get something reasonable, if you get a 4th round pick, I think you have to trade Kendrick Bourne. If we get into like they're getting offered a 6th rounder, then I think it's a little bit more questionable, because I do think like he provides enough in the locker room where you don't just sell him for nothing. Mm-hmm. He's not one of those players. He's not a Tyquan Thornton in that case. But I think if you get a legitimate price back, and let's call it a 4th rounder, I think you gotta trade Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, top 150 pick. I don't think anyone's off the board.
Yeah,
this is a 3-4 win team at most.
Yeah,
and a lot of guys, especially the vets, as Mike Giardi points out by his report, that could be on the move. It's how many guys are going to be here in the window. What makes a Kendrick Bourne important to me is what you pointed out. He's he's the only adult in that room.
Yep.
Like, KJ Osborne was brought in to be that guy. You've been in the league, and he's been anything but that. He's the one demanding for trades. You have Kayshon Boutte, if he's not getting caught making dumb gambling bets, that he's literally saying, yeah, I did demand both deep balls in the last 2 games. Like, keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
Check yourself. Be a professional. Be an adult in the room. Jalen Polk, best hands in the NFL. And he seems lost right now in his rookie season, which is fine. He's just a rookie. He's only played in 7 games. So we'll see what becomes of him. I'm not even going to get to Tyquan Thornton. I'm not even going to visit the other guys there. It's so void of talent that it is tough, because the other argument on the other side is who's Drake May throwing the ball to? Because Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, there's Pop Douglas too, who's been reliable. But it's Pop Douglas and that's it. And teams, like we saw what the Jets did, completely took Pop Douglas out of the game plan. Mm-hmm. He had a quick screen to start the game. Great play design, great play call by Alex Van Pelt. And that was it. We saw that first down, and he was basically done the rest of the day. And we saw balls going off the chest of so many different receivers. Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte as well. Guys with inopportune, massive drops. Tyquan Thornton.
Yep.
But for the right price, you do trade Kendrick Bourne. And this is, again, where Elliot Wolf has to play the card of who's calling him. Yeah. How bad do you need a wide receiver?
Call Houston.
Exactly. Call Houston. Kendrick Bourne, Bobby Slowick, little reunion there. Why not? You're familiar with that system. Call San Francisco.
Yep.
Ayuk's down. Debo's been banged up. Kyle, you get with KB, man. Great professional, adult in the room, good leader. What do you want from him? And that's what I'd want to see from Elliot Wolf.
Yep.
My 3, and I'm going not on the veteran side, but guys that clearly like this front office doesn't care for. And I'm thinking of guys from the past regime. So my 3 of a guy that needs to be traded is Tyquan Thornton. Now, you're going to get a 7th round pick. To me, that's fine. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But he's been a nothing. And that was the 50th overall pick, which cannot be forgotten by Bill Belichick. Because Matt Patricia, when he was given the keys to the offense, watched Baylor tape, and he watched a guy that runs a straight line on the track. Said, yeah, I want that. I understand. He said all those records at Baylor and the NFL are not the same level. And he never amounted to anything. His contract won't hurt you. You only save money. You don't owe him any guaranteed money. He's not part of the future. When he's been on the field, he's had drops. When he's off the field, you don't notice it. He's literally just doing cardio out there. You wouldn't get a massive return, but you get some return. Because as we've seen, get a 2026 6th round pick because you value that. And again, what market do you say? If Josh Uche is a 2026 6th round pick, what is Tyquan Thornton, a future 7th? Like nothing at that. But someone that doesn't do anything for you, and he just hasn't had that impact where Kayshon Boutte, he needs more snaps. Jalen Polk, he needs more snaps. Then Thornton is just taken away. When Jalen Polk gets back, be damned all his drops. He needs to play football and get out of his own head. He needs more snaps than Tyquan Thornton. So Thornton's like my 3rd guy on this list. Who else do you have on guys you'd like to see moved?
So I'm going to go with Jonathan Jones as the 2nd of the 3.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jonathan Jones is very well known in New England. You know, veteran corner. He's turned into maybe the leader on the defense, given all their injuries. We saw, the Patriots kind of posted a post-game celebratory locker room video the other day, and it was Jonathan Jones that was breaking them down. So, he's a really good piece. He's a really good piece for this defense, and he would be a really good piece for another defense. 31 years old, final year of the contract. And it's just, there's a chance that he signs elsewhere next year because he's not, this is not a playoff caliber team. And if he wants to go somewhere and land somewhere that it will win, it's not in New England. So
yeah,
I just think you talked earlier about the key positions and the premier positions in the league, right? I mean, a corner like him, a veteran corner, versatile corner. I mean, he was playing safety the other day. So we've seen so much from him. I just really think that he could be a key piece for someone. And I think, and maybe even more than Bourne, I think you might be able to get a decent return. I think a 4th rounder for Jonathan Jones isn't out of the question. And I'll say the same thing. I mean, if you get a 6th rounder, if you're getting offered a 6th rounder, like I just mentioned for Bourne, then maybe I don't trade Jonathan Jones. But I don't think that. I think he would demand a higher price. Yeah. And because of that, and because of you need picks, you need to start building towards the future. And he's 31. He's gone at the end in March. I think he would make a lot of sense as someone to trade.
Jonathan Jones is tough because Gerard Mayo is still trying to establish a culture. Yeah. And you said it on what the leader he is. Now, given in a game where you don't have Kyle Duggar, he was injured. You don't have Jabril Peppers, as he's still on the commissioner exempt list. And Jonathan Jones literally made the move from corner to safety, middle of the game, and did a terrific job at it because you don't notice any errors by him. But nonetheless, the leader that he is, take away that Jets win. The Jaguars loss. When Gerard Mayo comes out and calls the team soft, reports came out like, Jonathan Jones addressed the team. He spoke to us. He called us out. That's what's tough. Again, both sides of my neck, though. The right price, his Patriots team is so bad. They have to rebuild for the future. I can't write anyone off. But Jonathan Jones is on a do not trade list for me. You need a culture. You need leaders. You need to establish something. You're still trying to figure yourself out on defense, which has been just as much of a mess as the offense has been. So Jonathan Jones, I can't be seeing moved, but I understand the argument you make. My 2 spot is an interesting one. Again, I go to draft picks of past regimes. City So. What's the market for an interior offensive lineman that coming back was a starter in training camp, got injured before the season started, finally played, and after one start you bench him, but has played in a spot reserve at the left guard position. Now, what are you going to get from him? 6th round pick? 5th round pick? Maybe. It's, again, what teams need him and what teams are sniffed in the playoffs. But look at the Los Angeles Rams. They're 3-4. They're in last place in their division. The first place team is 3 of them. They're all 4-4. And I don't know how much longer the Rams are going to try Logan Bruss, Jonah Jackson, Justin Diedick, all at left guard, who have all been atrocious this season. When they get Cooper Kupp back, they have Puka Nacua back. Matt Stafford can still play. He just needs to be protected. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum can still run the ball. Like, how does that all happen? You have all this going, and your offensive line's been absolutely putrid. Jared Verse on defense is keeping you in. To me, it's a deep cut, but as we've seen, Antonio Mafi no longer on the team after a failed experiment at center. Jake Andrews has been injured. Cole Strange has been injured. But with City So, this team from the past regime, and Elliot Wolf's been in New England for 5 years. Bill Belichick still decided to use a top 120 pick on City So out of Eastern Michigan. He was a good guard for them last year. Good run blocker. Okay in pass blocking. Not phenomenal, but better than what the Rams are cooking with. There are suitors out there. You see what price you could get for him. City So, to me, is a guy that makes sense to be moved because once you bench him, you're showing what you think of him, and he's better off on another team. Cost control contract, which would be huge for the Rams to get him in there as they still are in the playoff picture.
I could see that. I also could see a team hanging up on you when you call and offer City So or Tyquan Thornton. So, and just given the amount of injuries that the Patriots offensive line has been better. I think we would agree with that. Better over the last 2 weeks, whatever it is, maybe 3 weeks. But given the amount of injuries that they have,
they need the depth.
I just can't see them parting ways with a guard that maybe he's a backup guard. But for this team, I mean, he very well could be thrust into the starting lineup at some point. I mean, would you be surprised if week 12 comes and City So is starting for you at guard? Like,
I wouldn't be surprised week 9 if he's starting.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's kind of where the Patriots are in terms of their offensive line and their lack of depth on the offensive line. So I just can't see them taking pieces off that for these late round, 6th round, probably closer to a 7th round pick.
Who else do you see that the Patriots can make a move and trade?
So I think the one that sticks out for me, and this is maybe the player that I want traded the most, I think is probably fair too. I want KJ Osborne out of here. I think, you brought him in and it was like, all right, good. Like you have a veteran in the room. I mean, veteran, he's like 27, but anyway, you have a veteran in the room with a very young group. He'll show them the way. He'll be this leader. And not only has he failed to produce, I mean, he's done next to nothing for them at this point. 7 receptions, 57 yards. He had that, he had 1 touchdown and then he, motions call me when he's celebrating the touchdown. So it's just not only has he failed to produce on the field, but he's caused like these distractions for a team that is trying to build a culture. And he's really one of the biggest distractions at this point. I mean, after the Jaguars game, he was the one that broadcast, I guess, his unhappiness with that screenshot, essentially saying, I don't want to be in New England anymore. Then he was asked about it a few days later by reporters, and he really didn't hide the fact that he doesn't want to be here. It's very clear he's not happy. He's not happy with his role. And I understand that to some extent. He's seen much less snaps over the last, he was starting the first few weeks of the season, and now he played like 9 snaps the other day. Played 13% of the snaps last week. So his role is not there, but I can't see a player of KJ Osborne's ilk is not worth these headaches, I guess, in my mind, is probably the way I think about it the most. And he might not get you much either. Maybe a 5th round pick, probably a 6th round pick. So it's not even so much for the capital that's coming back to you. It's just, let's just get him out of here. Yeah.
He's the ultimate addition by subtraction piece on this roster.
And he's another one. I mean, maybe call Houston, call San Fran, call teams that need.
Call Kansas City.
They
still need a Rasheed Rice replacement. It's the same exact type of player. Not as explosive, not as fast, not as reliable as Rasheed Rice. But as they've shown in Kansas City, they don't care if you somehow forget that you're a football player like Kadarius Toney. Like, they don't care about what you do off the field. If you're Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman, go to KC. They'll find a way to win with you. And again, that's a team that needs it. Like, they added the DeAndre Hopkins, but he's a different type of receiver. He's more short to intermediate at this point in his career, more boundary, more outside than inside of a KJ Osborne. I'm with you. I think Osborne needs to be traded. If you get a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick for him, great. If you get a 7th, fine. A future 7th, I don't care at this point because it is someone you brought in and signed. And it didn't make a lot of sense, but you go, you know what? They need vets. They'll take anyone that's a pass catcher that can come here. He needs to be a leader in the room. He's been anything but that. And that's what I think of. We go through all this. I want to see more from Elliott Wolf. Because if you look at his free agency signings, 7 of the 15 guys that they signed, whether re-signed or brought from outside free agents, have been duds. Jacoby Brissett was going out to not lose games. Joshua Uche, who you extended, you traded him away. KJ Osborne, we just gave the case for why he shouldn't be here anymore. Sione Takitaki battling through injuries. I'm not going to write him off, but he hasn't paid the dividends yet. Antonio Gibson, who was supposed to be a great third down back and a secondary back, had his flashes, but has fallen off. Chuksa Okorafor isn't with the team after playing 13 snaps. Nick Leverett, you cut. And then you go through the draft where Drake May is the easiest draft pick. If you're picking top 3, any of those 3 quarterbacks, easiest draft pick. Your second round pick that you trade back to get, Jalen Polk, has looked lost as a rookie. Caden Wallace couldn't make that switch to left tackle, even though you said he would have been a left tackle if he didn't have Olu Fashanu at Penn State. Layden Robinson, you benched. Javon Baker is lucky to even be active on game days. Marcellus Dial has been a special teamer, and guess what? Your special teams hasn't been fantastic. And then Joe Mill and Jaheim Bell, those are end of the draft picks. I'm not even going to get into them. But Elliott Wolf, as a general manager, you are assessed by free agency, by the draft, and the trade deadline. And so far, he's failed at all 3. Even at the deadline with the Joshua Uche trade, where you only get a future 6th for a pass rusher that has shown in spurts he can be special and goes to a spot where they're in win now mode. So you know they want to make a move to even back up that defense anymore. And you go with a future 6th? It doesn't make sense what we've seen from him. So if the phone calls come in and he gets a demand, we need to see more from Elliott Wolf. He needs to help out this team more. Just like we want to see more from Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt and Robert and Jonathan Kraft and Robin Glazer. Just like we want to see more from them, I want to see more from Elliott Wolf, who again was someone, as I point out that draft and free agency, well, let's not give him the title until after the draft. What are we doing? What are we doing in the leadership of the Patriots from top to bottom? But right now with Elliott Wolf, at this point, with the trade deadline ramping up, and you see the return some teams are getting, I want to see more from him. If we were to see more, you think the Patriots can make moves from other teams that could possibly be sellers at all, Sean?
Yeah, I do. And I think the biggest thing from a Patriots perspective is you need to be looking towards the future, period. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be selling, and it doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be only selling, and it doesn't need to be only buying. You kind of have to mix that. And I think that there's players out there, for teams that are struggling too. And, if you trade a pick and you get someone to come in, then they're under contract, or maybe they're set to hit free agency in March, but you have a better, kind of a leg up on the competition in terms of getting them to stay in your building and, agreeing to an extension or agreeing to a new contract, that sort of thing. So I certainly think that there are ways and there's a case to be made for the Patriots to add is I think maybe the best way to put it. And there are certainly players that I think stick out. I think you talk about some obvious positions of need, right? You talk about receivers. You talk about offensive linemen, and especially because I think receivers are more likely to be available. And, well, we've seen, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson. Yeah. We've seen receivers become available, and I would say probably you're more likely to get a receiver at the deadline than you are to get, a left tackle, a franchise left tackle, obviously. So I think there are deals to be made for sure.
Yeah, what I think of, you point out that Amari Cooper move, we see the price that Deontay Johnson is, and I've said it time and time again, but I'm serious about it. You go out and you trade for a T. Higgins. You get a 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver in your building who's been in and out of the lineup, but playing on a franchise tag and showed up the second he was franchised. You have 2/3 in this upcoming draft. One of those being the Falcons from the Matt Judon trade. Part ways with one of those thirds. A day 2 pick. Give a future 3rd or a future 4th. Those are 2 good draft picks for a receiver the Bengals won't pay and won't keep around. And if you get a T. Higgins in your building now, you prevent him from hitting free agency. Mm-hmm. You get him now. You have $25 million in cap space this season right here. Work out a contract where you pay him a good amount this season and all the cap space, over $110 million to have next season, work out a deal there too. Is T. Higgins a bona fide number 1? No. He would be a number one for you. He'd be a high level number one for you with the depth you have. But as we've learned from teams like the Green Bay Packers, have a bunch of wide receiver twos, make sure they're complementary to one another, and make it work from that standpoint. And it can work. You get a T. Higgins. You can still draft a receiver in later rounds if it's a Trey Harris or a Yomanor from Stanford. Or if you go somewhat higher up, depending what you do at the tackle spot. But the T. Higgins with the Bengals, who are now 3-5 and need to rebuild because they can't get any stops and the defense can't help it. And Joe Burrow, even how talented Joe Burrow is, cannot elevate that team to win. Go and get him. Or if you're looking at a Christian Watson with the Green Bay Packers, insane to think with them at 6-2, but it's still a team that will look towards the future. And Christian Watson, just 20 targets a season. His health has been a question. That's a red flag I'd have for him. But okay, if Deontay Johnson only demands a fifth, Deontay Johnson and a sixth, only demands a fifth, all right, what would Christian Watson and a seventh deal with all these future draft picks the Patriots have? Because they have way too many sevenths in future drafts, way too many sixths now with Joshua Uche. Okay, you have that. And if you get a Christian Watson in your building, you could get him healthy. He's a great downfield receiver. Hello, your quarterback right now loves throwing the deep ball. If you can trade for him, that would make a big move. And it's just setting up depth before you get to free agency in the draft. So while they're sellers, they should still be buyers at certain positions.
Yep.
You addition by subtraction with KJ Osborne, that addition can come back in a T. Higgins or a Christian Watson. I put T. Higgins way above a Christian Watson, but they're both guys that you need because Pop Douglas is good, can't be your number one. The guys you have right now can't be your number one. They need to find ways outside of upcoming free agency and the upcoming draft to add talent because this roster is void with talent in so many spots.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about T. Higgins, and that was when I was just kind of talking. That was the player that I was thinking of. Is at this point the Bengals they're reeling a little bit, and at this point, if they go and they lose this week, like they should be in sell mode, and especially when you have a player like T. Higgins that can get you some draft pick in return, and he's gone. He's gone after the end of the season. So, and they have to know that. So I think that's like the player that, and we've talked about this, preseason, offseason, the whole last year, it feels like. But definitely I would say he's the one that kind of sticks out.
I've said it before the season began when he was showing up on the tag. I said it even when the season opened up and the Bengals were doing bad and they had a clear need at wide receiver. You want to help your quarterback with his development. You want to help out this offense overall. You want to see, again, if you're Elliott Wolf, if you're Robert Kraft, if you're Gerard Mayo, you want to see what Alex Van Pelt can do. Get him some weapons. Don't leave any excuses. Well, I didn't have a receiver. Well, he didn't have a left tackle. Well, go out and get those at the deadline for teams that would need it. And again, all these draft picks you've accrued, go out and use them to acquire talent. And and even if someone's out there thinking, well, a third's a lot for T. Higgins. What is T. Higgins proven?
Yeah.
He is an NFL wide receiver. What is that third round pick when you draft whoever? A prospect, unproven, and you don't know if they'll work out. And I think that's the biggest difference. As someone that likes assets, draft assets, likes rebuilding in drafts, cost control contracts, you have to pay at certain positions. And the Patriots put themselves in that spot. Because if they wait for free agency, Sean, who are they going to be bidding with, man?
Yeah,
the Ravens,
exactly. Yep.
Right? The Chiefs, much better situations all around. Teams with great cap space, teams with need at receiver, the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield and that offense. Look, who are you going to be bidding with? And you're going to get outbid, even if you overpay, because those are better situations. Get guys in your building and pay them now. That's what I think is important for the Patriots, to find a way to be buyers while also being sellers. Look towards the future while still trading away guys right now. It can be important on both ends.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that you don't want to give away picks maybe because those players are going to become free agents at the end of the season, and then the thought is, well, you just go and you sign them without giving up a pick, and the Patriots are not in that position, and you kind of just touched on it. I mean, they're not an attractive landing spot for these players. Yep. So you might have to part ways with a little bit extra, and you might have to pay a little bit extra, and it's just that's the position they're in. And this is like a prime example of giving up picks to get something in return, and then eventually keeping them under your control, under your contract.
That's what's important, is that get them in the building now, because as you saw with Calvin Ridley, they're just a leverage piece now. Mm-hmm. Drake May can be great, but you're still just a leverage piece right now. We'll see how this team finishes. He's Sean McGuire. I'm George Balekji. This is Foxboro Rush. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. Please like, subscribe, download, rate, and review. go to Nesson's YouTube page, hit the like button, leave us a comment, subscribe to Nesson YouTube as well. You can catch all episodes and clips of Foxboro Rush, Boston Center the Chat, Hold My Banner, 310 to Left, Hockey Hub. We got them all the podcasts all across the Nesson Network. He's Sean. I'm George. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.